Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Before we officially get started, I'd just like to make sure that you can see and hear us clearly. To enter or answer a question at any time, make sure to use this little chat bubble icon. This box will pop up if you're on a computer, and you'll be able to type a question for anybody to be able to see or a comment about something that we're saying. If you would like to make sure that your audio is clear, make sure you click on this little phone icon, and you'll be able to access any of the conference call numbers as well as the conference ID. Welcome to Bringing Light to Postpartum Depression and PMAD. You'll find out what PMAD means in a second if you don't know. Presented by Sonia Murdock, Executive Director of the Postpartum Resource Center of New York, and Bridget Croteau, Class of 2006, and Mrs. Suffolk County for 2018 to 2019. My name is Karen Katusian. I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement here at St. Joseph's College, Long Island. Thank you so much for being here and welcome. We'd like to just give you a little bit of information now about our presenters. So you'll see Bridget Croteau. She lives in Bayshore with her husband, Beau, and their two daughters, Natalie and Chloe, and a Labradoodle, Jake. She's an alumna of St. Joseph's College, where she graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Biology and Adolescent Education with a minor in Chemistry. She holds a Master of Library Science degree from Queens College, and she taught middle and high school science for 5 years. Croteau is currently Mrs. Suffolk County, America, 2018 to 2019, an author, volunteer, and a stay-at-home mom. Bridget is also a volunteer for the Postpartum Resource Center of New York, serving as a part of the Advocacy Committee, speaking at support groups and community events, and assisting with fundraisers. Then we have Sonia Murdock, who is a perinatal mood and anxiety disorders trainer, guest speaker, and consultant. She is the Executive Director of the Postpartum Resource Center of New York, which has served New York State families since 1998 and is recognized internationally as a model parental social support network. She co-founded the statewide 501c3 after supporting her sister through postpartum psychosis and severe postpartum depression. With her family's experience of being in crisis during her sister's illness, she vowed to help women and families across the state get the help and support they need for perinatal mood and anxiety disorders in order to prevent tragedies and build healthy families for vibrant communities. Bridget and Sonia, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us. There will be opportunity for those of you who would like to answer questions or ask questions or provide any comments. We'll definitely be able to do discussion at the end. And we're also going to be sending a survey immediately following this webinar where you will have a chance to win one of 2 complimentary copies of an anthology of stories about postpartum depression that Bridget Croteau is actually a part of. She's going to talk about that a little bit later on. We also will have information for you in our survey for you to fill out if you would like to receive free information packets from the Postpartum Resource Center of New York for different resources and things that you can bring for yourself, for family, or for your organization that you might work at. Sonia and Bridget, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll take it over to you now.
Thank you so much for having us today. I'm so excited that we're doing this webinar. So let's get started with what are PMADs and who can have a PMAD. So PMAD stands for perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, which is the #1 complication of childbirth. And these can happen at any time during pregnancy or any time in the first year following pregnancy. And this can happen to... Go ahead, Sonia.
Oh, I was just going to say, first off, I want to back up and say thank you to St. Joseph's and Taryn for having us and your support, and also, Bridget, thank you to you. I really want to express great gratitude to you for your enthusiastic determination to make sure everyone knows what PMADs are, and so I'll wait now, so continue.
Okay. So moms, dads, can be affected by PMADs, including adoptive parents as well. Sonia?
Yes, so it's very important, as Bridget said, this is the #1 complication of childbirth, and we're just very grateful for everyone who's joining us this evening right now, especially since today is World Maternal Mental Health Awareness Day. So we want to make sure that everyone is aware of the prevalence of this illness. Unfortunately, there can be devastating consequences if PMADs are not detected, undertreated, as well as it's very important for everyone to know that perinatal mood disorders and anxiety disorders are fully treatable.
So risk factors, as with any sort of illness or disease, there are risk factors involved, which for these include lack of support, any sort of major life change, a death of a friend or a family member, moving across country, an illness, loss of job, things like that. If you have a difficult pregnancy or labor, an unplanned pregnancy, colicky baby, difficulty breastfeeding, if you yourself or anybody in your family have history of anxiety, depression, or any other disorder, or if you have previous trauma in your life.
The previous trauma can also be related to a traumatic birth experience, as well as past trauma can be related to sexual abuse and domestic violence.
So there are various types of PMADs, and these are a variety of mood and anxiety disorders that can happen, and they're not necessarily a list of you start at one and you progress through these. A great quote from Catherine Stone, who founded Postpartum Progress, is, "You are not alone. These are real illnesses, and these are not your fault, and they don't make you a bad mom." So some of the PMADs are prenatal or postpartum depression, postpartum prenatal anxiety, postpartum OCD, post-traumatic stress disorder, bipolar disorder, and postpartum psychosis.
So I think it's important that everybody is learning here that this is a spectrum, and how perinatal mood and anxiety disorders is an umbrella term here. So as Bridget has just described here, listing all of these subsets of the illness. So PMADs just isn't postpartum depression.
So baby blues are not technically considered a PMAD. About 80% of moms will go through this right after having her baby, and these feelings of crying, moodiness, sadness, some anxiety will generally end after 2 to 3 weeks or so, but these are generally not severe when it's considered baby blues. If these are severe or they're going on longer than that, then that's a reason to reach out for some help.
Research also shows that we shouldn't just ignore the baby blues, because women who have more severe baby blues may be at higher risk for a PMAD. So definitely, if there is a concern during this time period, definitely to reach out to your healthcare provider.
I just want to mention quickly, this is Taryn, before we go to the next slide. There are a couple of people who are having some trouble with audio, so I just want to let you know 2 things. Computer audio is not necessarily as reliable, so you definitely want to dial in if you can, and we have provided that information to you in the chat box. The other thing we'd like to let you know is we are recording this webinar, and this webinar will be made available to you after the webinar within 24 to 48 hours. So if you happen to miss a quick sound, or you might have joined a couple of minutes late, don't worry, we're going to take care of you. And now we'll proceed to the next slide.
So postpartum depression is probably one of the more well-known PMADs. Symptoms include crying, guilt, insomnia or sleeping too much, feeling inadequate, hopeless, worthless, feeling irritable, having trouble bonding with the baby, and having appetite changes. I myself, that's a picture of me and my little girl Natalie when she was a couple of days old in the NICU. And I myself went through postpartum depression with my little girl Natalie. I had a great pregnancy with her, but we were very unexpectedly induced, and it was a very difficult labor. I had lost my job previously to this when I was teaching, so I felt that big loss already. After Natalie was born, she had a fever, I had a fever, so she ended up in the NICU for a week, and that gave me a lot of feelings of failure and feeling really kind of worthless. So after about 4 months of feeling this way, I eventually reached out for help, and I'm very thankful that I did, because the therapy I went to and the support group that I went to was really, truly just incredible, and just made me feel like I wasn't alone, and that I myself could get better and, not just be able to cope with daily life, but be able to do really well afterwards.
Bridget, I want to say I really appreciate you sharing from your personal experience, and I hope that everyone who's joining us, that they'll be further learning from your firsthand account.
Thank you, Sonia. It's my pleasure to share, because really when I was going through this, one of the biggest things that helped me was hearing other people's stories who had been there and gone through it, and they came out the other side and were okay. So I feel like kind of a responsibility to share my story and to help somebody else feel better, and that they can get through it, and that there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. So also with postpartum depression, I do want to include here also many moms may feel loss of enjoyment in activities that they've previously enjoyed. And also for some moms, they may have thoughts of harming themselves or even thoughts of harming the baby.
So I just want to mention Bonnie has a question for Bridget. She wants to know where Bridget got her therapy. I know you're going to be discussing that a little bit later, Bridget. So would you like to address that now? Or would you like to talk about it when you get to that slide?
We could get to it a little bit later.
Okay, great. So hang tight, Bonnie. We'll definitely make sure that we answer your question. And if people have other questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box.
Okay, so another PMAD is postpartum anxiety, and some symptoms of that are anxiety, racing thoughts, having trouble sleeping, feelings of dread, appetite changes, and feeling really worried. And that's a picture there of me and my two girls. My little one, who's the baby there, is my little Chloe, and with her, I had postpartum anxiety. I was okay for a few months after her birth. I had a great birth with her. She was a great breastfeeder. Everything was fine, but we had a family health issue that had been going on since a couple of months before Chloe was born. And because she was breastfeeding and waking throughout the night several times, I was becoming quite tired, and I was having a lot of trouble getting back to sleep after feeding her. And eventually I became very anxious and had a lot of worry and anxiety surrounding anything involving schedules and anything involving especially her sleep schedule. Very quickly, the thoughts of, of her missing one nap would very quickly snowball into, I'm never going to sleep ever again. And I eventually brought her to the pediatrician thinking that there had to be something wrong, that she just was up so many times during the night. And my pediatrician turned to me and said, she's fine. I'm worried about you. You need to get some rest. You need to get sleep, and you need to take care of yourself. And once I started sleeping again, I started feeling better. And again, at this time, I was also going to support group and to therapy as well to help deal with all the anxious feelings I was going through.
Bridget, I want to say that this photo that you shared, it's so adorable.
Thank you.
At the time, at the time though, with the postpartum anxiety, I do want to point out, because this is why we always say the importance of screening, as well as the importance of asking the question of a new parent. How are they doing? How are they feeling? Listening if we hear any concerns, helping them get to the help they need. Because, again, in this photo, it's like we can't tell by looking. And I don't think anyone would suspect that you're going through postpartum anxiety.
Nope. No one would ever know.
Yeah.
Another PMAD is postpartum OCD, and here we'll see repetitive behavior and repetitive, intrusive, and persistent thoughts.
With postpartum OCD, many times what we find that this is very misunderstood and confused with postpartum psychosis. That will be shared in a few minutes. But these women are in reality, and many times what they'll do is avoidance behavior with the excessive worry, the fears, they will look to avoid what is scaring them that may be connected to, harm, fear of harm of the baby especially.
Post-traumatic stress disorder. Here you'll have recurrent nightmares, very bad anxiety, reliving the past traumatic events, and risk factors specifically for this are past traumatic events, a traumatic birth, or having a baby in the NICU.
I think many people with PTSD, they can relate to thinking about this with our veterans, but many times people are not thinking how it could also possibly be experienced by moms.
And we have bipolar disorder, and here you have depression, trouble concentrating, racing thoughts, feeling like you don't need to sleep very much, very high energy. And then risk factors there would be a personal or family history of having bipolar disorder, and there are two different types, bipolar 1 and bipolar 2.
These moms are very high risk for relapse, so if a woman has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder prior to pregnancy, it's very important that she is reaching out and working with her healthcare team during the pregnancy as well as postpartum.
And postpartum psychosis. This is very rare. It's 1 to 2 births out of 1,000 where this will happen, and it's very serious. Immediate help is needed if this is going on. The mom will be experiencing confusion, delusions, hallucinations, mania, paranoia, and the symptoms can come and go.
With postpartum psychosis, I supported my sister through postpartum psychosis, so seeing this firsthand, the seriousness of this. If a mom is going through postpartum psychosis, she should not be left alone. She shouldn't be left alone with the baby, the children. Again, it's a medical emergency, and she needs to either be taken to the ER, mobile crisis to help her, calling the doctor, getting her to the help she needs. We're fortunate that in this country now, beginning the more growth of the specialized inpatient units for perinatal mental illness. So there is a unit through Zucker Hillside Hospital, UNC Chapel Hill, as well as a unit in California. And with postpartum psychosis, with the symptoms, as Bridget said, symptoms may come and go, the waxing and waning, the women being in and out of reality. So that's why it's so important that we are in touch with our moms as well as being educated about these symptoms and get them to the help they need so they're not tragedies for the mom, the baby, or the children.
So how do we treat these? What do we do to help get better from this? There's therapy, support groups, medication. Myself, I went to therapy and to support groups, and those worked really well for me. Some people do medication only, some people do all three. Another really good thing to do is to make sure you see your doctor for a checkup, because there are other physiological things that could be going on that are contributing to how the mom is feeling. I myself went for a checkup after Natalie was a year old, and my B12 was found to be in a low range that actually is associated with depressive symptoms. So I was able to go on B12 vitamins, and my mood got much better after that.
Also included in treatments, I'd like to include in here also complementary medicine. There are some additional treatments that some research has shown, like light box therapy, sometimes mindfulness, meditation, yoga, but really the importance, as Bridget said, getting to the social support. The support groups can be very, very helpful, or even phone support, so women know that they're not alone in this. Also with treatments or support groups or support community, for some women, the faith community can also be very helpful to them during this time.
So tips for expecting families. I like to create a game plan. Who are you going to call if you don't feel right? Are you going to call your OB? Are you going to call a midwife? Do you have a therapist that you can call already? Are you going to call your doctor? Having names and insurance info and phone numbers ready for therapists just in case you need them. So it's one less thing for you to have to deal with if you happen to start feeling not so great. It's one less thing for you to have to do if you have that already set aside and all ready to go. Doulas are amazing. I had no idea there were even a thing called postpartum doulas, but we actually hired one for our second birth because we had the family health issue going on. We wanted to have some extra hands on deck to kind of help me out, knowing my history with having postpartum depression the first time around. Doulas are amazing. They will come to your house and help you with breastfeeding and help you with things around the house and let you take a nap and watch the baby so you can go to checkups and things like that. So they're incredible. So if you're on Long Island and you're interested in a doula, the Long Island Doula Association, LIDA, is amazing. You can find a list of doulas there. Stocking your freezer really helped me personally. I made everything under the sun, soups, baked ziti, meatloaves, all sorts of things, meals that I could just throw right into a crock pot, defrost and heat up and not have to deal with cooking or anything for a few weeks after we had our baby. And have your team ready. Who are you going to call to help you around the house or watch the baby so you can take a shower or watch the baby so you can take a quick nap? Who's going to bring you meals? Who can you call to talk to and just chat with because you just want to talk to somebody? To have all that kind of set up ahead of time.
Yeah, Bridget's game plan is really, really very important. What we want to work towards is either risk reduction or early detection, giving that support there right from the start. So even if it's a mom that you know who has been through a previous PMAD, there is even a great book called What Am I Thinking? Having Another Baby After Postpartum Depression. So with What Am I Thinking? Having Another Baby After Postpartum Depression by Karen Kleinman, she also has within there something called the Postpartum Pact, which would be really great to include in this game plan here. So exactly as Bridget's saying, getting this all together, getting the team together, building the village to help you.
And some great tips for friends and family who have a loved one who are having a baby soon. How can you help? Offer to help. Just offer to help and bring them meals. Watch the baby. So they can take a shower, they can take a nap, they can run to the doctor without having to bring the 2-week-old baby to the doctor with them. And ask mom and dad how they are doing. Don't just ask about the baby. Ask them how they're really doing and listen to their answer and just let them talk. Don't judge if they're just crying and they're just so upset and not feeling so great. Don't say this is supposed to be happy. Don't say, don't say anything with judgment. We judge ourselves enough as it is, and we beat ourselves up enough. We don't want any judgment from anybody else. Reassure mom that if she's feeling badly, that it's not her fault, and to just listen to her, let her talk, let the dad talk, let the mom talk, and just be there for them. Bring them a coffee, give them a hug, bring them a lasagna, just be there for them.
Yep. So with building this village, as you're sharing, Bridget, this is all great and everything. So as Bridget's saying, what we see here really it's hands-on help, so that practical support, but also the importance of including the emotional support. So sometimes it's just even a matter of listening and being there to listen. Everything from listening to their birth story, the labor and delivery, any concerns, different things like that. But it's really very critical to listen to that new parent.
And I just want to add that you don't even have to live in their neighborhood to have a meal sent to them. I have a cousin down in Florida, and when she had a baby, I found out from my aunt a restaurant near them that would deliver, and I called up and I ordered a couple of meals for them and had it sent to their house. So even though I couldn't stop by and bring them a lasagna myself, I had one delivered to them. So that kind of helped them out in that way. And you can always talk to people on the phone and, you know, texting or whatever if you're not in the neighborhood or where you can get to them to go visit in person.
These are all awesome tips.
And where can you go for help? The Postpartum Resource Center in New York is incredible. There is a resource directory on there that is incredible. You could find support groups and therapists and all sorts of information on their website. If you're beyond New York, Postpartum Support International is amazing. They have tons of information there, including support for dads. They do a dad's chat. I think it's like the first Wednesday of every month. I could be wrong on the date, but is it the Wednesday? So first Wednesday, they do a dad's chat, so dads can get support through them as well. And the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-8255. Very important number to know.
We want to make sure here that 100% of people who need help get to the help they need, because right now research sometimes even shows only about 20% of moms are getting to the help they need. So we hope that everyone who is here will keep this resource information, share it, utilize it yourself, because we want to make sure, again, like I said, 100% of people who are in need of help get to the help they need.
This is Karen, and that's so important, Sonia, what you just said. So as a reminder, for those who may have logged in a little later, this webinar and all content and information contained within it will be recorded and will be made available to all participants within 24 to 48 hours.
So other resources for further information, there's A Dark Secret, which is the book that Taryn had mentioned earlier that two people will be able to get a copy of. My story's in there along with 14 other women. We shared our stories of going through postpartum depression and other perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. Nobody Told Me is a great book. I've read it a couple of times. It's wonderful, and it helped me personally while I was going through postpartum depression. Down Came the Rain from Brooke Shields was also great. I read that when I had postpartum depression as well, and it was amazing. Beyond the Blues has a chapter for everybody. There's a chapter in there for partners. There's a chapter in there for family members. There's information in there for the mom herself, for care providers. So there's tons of great practical information in there. And What Am I Thinking? Having a Baby After Postpartum Depression is the book that Sonia had just mentioned a few moments ago.
These are all great books and resources, and as time goes on, I mean, there's more and more books. That important book I do want to mention, as Bridget said, that she contributed to, A Dark Secret. So again, so women know that they're not alone, and that the importance of having hope and knowing that healing is possible from PMADs.
Another great thing going on in July is a documentary screening that Sonia and I will be at of Dark Side of the Full Moon, which is a great documentary about PMADs and the healthcare system, and it's just a really great watch. Lots of great information in there.
So if you're available, we would love to meet you, and please attend the screening. It's free. It's free. It's a free screening.
Yes, it's free documentary screening, so come on down. On May 12th, we're having our 10th annual Sounds of Silence 5K, 10K, run, walk, stroller walk at Jones Beach. So come and join us. It's a great fundraiser for the Postpartum Resource Center. And it's an amazing family day. There's kids stuff to do. They do a kids fun run, and there's always activities for them to do, and food and tons of raffles of all sorts of great stuff. My family goes every year, and we have a blast. Even the kids have a blast. So if you're coming with kids, don't worry, your kids are going to have a great time, and everyone's going to have a great time.
And just by chance, if you're not able to make it, we also do have an option, and we invite you to be a virtual runner. So we greatly appreciate everyone's support, and as a virtual runner, you do get the special race T-shirt mailed to you.
So in closing, very important message for everybody that you are not alone, you are not to blame, and you will be well with help.
So thank you to everyone. With the Postpartum Resource Center of New York, like I said, I personally supported my sister through postpartum psychosis and severe postpartum depression, and that's what led me personally to co-found the statewide nonprofit, the Postpartum Resource Center of New York, which I'm really very happy to share with each of you that this year we're celebrating 20 years of service to New York State moms, dads, and families. And again, thanks for everyone for being here with us.
Thank you so much, Bridget and Sonia. And as we transition into questions and as people are thinking about things that they might want to either add as a comment or ask a question about, there is one that I'd like to ask you right now. Oh, viewer 8 is applauding you. She says applause. So there you go, Bridget.
Thank you, viewer 8. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, so you talked a lot about, Bridget, sort of the, no judgment or, things that you, sort of had to come to in terms of looking for help. And I think, for women in general, just my opinion, I think it's difficult for most women to ask for help, especially when they're embarking on, starting a family and having a child. Why do you think that is, and what made you really decide I need some help with this and I have to kind of look at other resources beyond myself?
I was the same way. I had a lot of trouble asking for help. I felt I had, as a woman, that I had to, this is my job to take care of my family, and I should be able to do it. And especially because at the time I was a stay-at-home mom, that I, doubly sure should be taking care of my family because I'm home all the time with them and I wasn't at work, and it was just all my responsibility. And I just got to the point where I had to ask for help because I realized that I just couldn't do it all on my own, and that it was okay to ask for help. That's what family and friends are for. What else? You're supposed to be there to help your loved ones in your life, and because you care about them. And this was really, it was a crisis going through postpartum depression. It was a real big problem. It was a real difficult situation. So I needed the help, and I didn't really have a choice but to ask for help because I just got to the point that I couldn't, I needed it.
Bonnie has a question. So I think maybe perhaps both of you might be able to help answer this. So Bonnie says, I found it extremely difficult to find a good therapist who specialized in PMADs. Any specific suggestions? Also, how long do perinatal mood disorders postpartum last before it crosses the line to not be postpartum anymore?
Well, for finding a therapist, definitely check out the Postpartum Resource Center's website. It definitely is hard to find a therapist that specializes in perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. I personally don't think there's enough. But on the website in the resource directory, there are people there that are specialized in it.
Also, I would say to Bonnie, please feel free to call our helpline because not sure if you live within New York State or not, but I mean, we're able to help anybody throughout the country, the world actually. And we further help women. Our tagline from day one to even now is perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, finding the help you need. So we stick by the women and help them get connected to whom they feel comfortable with, who's going to be helping them through this. And also the second question, when does it stop being postpartum depression? I don't know if you're asking about maybe the time period, but the time period that we go from is maybe about 12 months from the birth of a baby. But if a woman is breastfeeding, and that the baby is older than 12 months old, and then she's weaning the baby, sometimes women will go through postpartum depression after that time period. The term sometimes is now also even maternal depression. So after maybe that time period, but still, again, it's very important to know that this is all treatable, and it's getting connected to the help you need. So, I mean, we would really very much look forward to helping you.
And Bonnie, as I mentioned, and I typed this in chat, I'm happy to get you in touch and connect you with Sonia directly, for more specific resources and information local to where you are as well. Another question here. So for Bridget, are there things you wish others had seen or recognized when you were going through postpartum depression that would have helped you?
When my daughter was in the NICU, I cried an awful lot while I was in there, which I imagine is probably not abnormal for a mom who had a baby in the NICU. I would imagine that there was tears shed in there before. But nobody asked me how I was doing while this was all going on. So I wish that maybe somebody had stepped in at that point and kind of, asked me how I was doing. I don't know that I would have really had a great answer for them. I think at that point I would have just said I was probably okay, but I knew I probably wasn't. So I think that I wish that then that they definitely had asked me. And as for like family and friends, I don't know. I mean, they always asked me how I was doing, and I was kind of honest with them, but I was also sort of they knew what I was upset about and what I was anxious about. But I was also in very much denial for about 4 months about what these feelings really meant and what all my sadness meant. I just chalked it up to, I had a baby in the NICU, I lost my job, and I had all these things going on. So anybody would feel this way, but I didn't put a pinpoint or a light bulb go off on this way I was feeling was postpartum depression. But if you see family or friends like not acting quite like themselves, please ask them how they're doing. And even if they're not acting unlike themselves, ask them how they're doing anyway, because they might open up to you and tell you what's going on that they're not telling anybody else or showing anybody.
And Bridget, I really think, what's key and what's crucial to what you're saying here, about PMADs and just anything in general is just making the effort to take that step and let someone know that you're thinking about them. And even if they are okay, or even if, it might have been off base, just letting someone know that you're there for them and that you're there to support them.
Yeah, everybody likes to feel supported and loved, whether you're going through this or not. Everybody likes to feel loved.
Another question here. So Bridget, Sonia, I think this one is a little bit more geared towards you, but Bridget, feel free to answer as well. It says, if you're a family member or friend of someone who could be going through postpartum depression or PMAD, are there any, it says red flags, parentheses, keywords, language, behaviors that I should watch out for or pay attention to that's more significant than just giving birth, it says?
Do they mean keywords that someone is saying, or for them to say to the mom?
I think the question is asking like things like red flags that as a family member or someone who's not the mom, things that they could hear that could be a red flag for them. That maybe the person.
Oh, that if they're. Oh, okay. So, for example, if they're saying, if they've depersonalized the baby. If they're calling the baby it, that could be of a concern. If they hear the mom begin to say things that I think people would just be better off without me, or I feel like I'm a burden to everyone. Also, if the mom's behavior where maybe she used to be a very social person and now she's very much isolating herself. Or if she's not taking care of herself with her, personal hygiene, maybe she used to, really take good care of, just her appearance, things like that. And if she's becoming disheveled, that would be a concern. Also, if in regards to the baby, if she's beginning to miss appointments, missing taking the baby to appointments, missing appointments for herself, those can all be concerns. Anything that could be, I would say, that could be a concern to family and friends, to other people, even her partner, where they might be like, this just doesn't seem normal for her. And those can all be red flags. So I hope that it helped to answer the question.
Thank you. Another question here, could you advise how long PMADs last in general?
Well, I do want to say I'm not a medical professional. We're here for peer support. But, and again, I would say that it really is up there with one of the top questions we're asked on a daily basis from moms. So the best way that I can answer it is that everybody's body chemistry is different, everybody's situations are different, things like that. But it's really very important to get connected to that help, and that I can't just give, a clear-cut time frame, but with working with, specialists at team, that there should become more, I would say, more good days than bad days. And a lot of women working with their team, that's beginning, like how they start to gauge it with their recovery.
Okay, as we begin to wrap up the webinar, Bridget and Sonia, I just want to ask you if there's any last thoughts or comments that you'd like to share with the group.
Just thank you so much for having us do this webinar. This is incredible, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to share this information with everybody. So thank you so much, and thank you to everybody who is here listening now or is going to listen later. Thank you so much for caring about this very important cause enough to come and listen to this.
I also do want to say thank you to everybody. And again, Taryn, thank you to you, St. Joseph's, and Bridget. And also, I'd like to say a big thank you on behalf of my family, because my sister is doing great today. So knowing again that this is all fully treatable, and it's really important to connect to the help you need.
Sonia, I'm so happy to hear that. That's fantastic for your sister, and not only for her and your family, but for you. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I think, all of us are really happy to hear that for her. Just a quick reminder for those of you who may have joined late, we have recorded this webinar. We will make it available within 24 to 48 hours, and we will send you the link. We will be also sending you a survey following this webinar, and you will be able to enter yourself to win a complimentary copy of A Dark Secret, which was the anthology featuring a story about Bridget Croteau's experience with postpartum depression and PMAD, as well as if you are a provider or a healthcare professional, or you're someone who might just want more resources and information from the Postpartum Resource Center of New York. You will be able to complete a form that's optional if you'd like to receive information via mail, whether it's for you or someone else. So please make sure to look out for that in your email. Thank you very much, Bridget and Sonia. We are so happy to have you. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, your advice, and your expertise on this topic. Thank you, everyone else, for joining us, and have a great evening.